my fellow readers, is I, Dark Symphony 7 Simpson, with another fan fiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notification. And finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, the story we are reviewing is Mega Man X Ghost in the Machine by Megas523. And this is the finale of the Mega Man novelization I did earlier, like a couple of videos ago. Now, I wanted to save this video, this story for a separate video, mainly because from what I read of it, because I decided to read ahead of it just in case, I may talk about it in the same video as the novelizations. I realized this was just a drastically different story from everything that's been done before, like his previous stories. And now that I finished it, those choices are there for better or worse, because I honestly have very mixed feelings about the story, because it has a lot of good, but it has a lot of bad, and all the bad stuff kind of relates to like one specific part of the story and kind of just seeps in and just destroys everything. But I'll talk about that in a bit. So let's start with the plot. So the difference between this story and the novelizations is this story is completely original, but the author wants to try and basically, I guess you could say the word, force it into the canon, because the story kind of sets up the events of Mega Man Zero, which is another Mega Man series. And I think that's kind of neat, but at the same time, kind of, well, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry, I actually didn't get that much sleep last night. Divisive, because I think on one hand it's a good idea, but on the other hand, the way he went about it is very, very debatable. So the story doesn't actually start with Mega Man X and the Maverick Hunters and all that. It actually starts with original character called Trevor. What was that? Dr. Trenton Corbin, who was a character who was created in the novelizations. I didn't talk about much about him and the other human characters, mainly because I wanted to talk about them here, because I thought it would be, when I first started reading this story, I thought they would be kind of, unlike the novelizations, they kind of focused on Mega Man, rock and roll and all that. So I thought this story would be kind of focused more on the human characters. So Dr. Corbin was a character introduced in the novelizations. He was the guy who made the robots in the novelization of Mega Man 5. Like, he built those. And he basically kind of started a little bitter, because he was like living in the time where like Dr. Light, Dr. Wily, and Dr. Cossack were like the big guys, and he was just kind of there. But he didn't actually he didn't let it get to him. He's like, I just want to do my own thing. I just want to, let's just do what I can. And that and throughout the entire series of the novelizations, he kind of provided a background character of just providing kind of something of like exposition of some kind, and it was more or less just there. He was more of a jovial guy who basically firmly believed in Dr. Light's idea of like Reploids and humans getting along in peace and harmony and stuff like that. And so when Dr. Light survived, he wanted to try and finish the job and help him out. So the story actually starts out with Dr. Corbin going to Mount Everest and meeting King. King is a character that was introduced in Mega Man Base, which is considered the original Mega Man 9 before Mega Man 9 became a thing. And so they propose an idea. And that idea is to basically protect Robot Masters because they realize that Robot Masters, they're still being hunted, they're being attacked, discriminated against, and so they think, let's just make a town or city for them so they can be happy and so they can have some place to be and be themselves and stuff like that. And so now we get to Mega Man X with the Maverick Hunters, and they're doing Maverick Hunter stuff. They're waiting for Sigma to show up because inevitably he's gonna show up. They're training, they're doing all that jazz, and X and Cygnus, they're kind of worried about like, oh, with like humanity's already starting to die. Humanity, not so much humanity, but the planet itself is starting to die off because people are dying and people are going living in these city states and unable to really live that long because the Earth is actually slowly collapsing and stuff like that. And now Cygnus more or less controls Japan because they're the Maverick Hunters are the only ones who can actually fight the Mavericks and stuff like that. But then at the same time, we also have a second side of the story involving these group of characters. They don't have an official name for their title for the group, but I would call them King's Court because they're basically the Reploids that Corbin built to aid King out in his duties. And all of them are basically named after different titles. So there's like Baron, Earl, and like common ones. And then you have like more obscure ones like Viscount and Margarine, which are actual royal titles and stuff like that. And they basically live in the underground city that King and Corbin built called Mecca, and their whole purpose is basically go across the world, find robot masters, whether they're deactivated or not, wake them up, bring them to home, bring them to the city, wake them up, and basically try and get them to get free will, to break up the shackles of Asimov's three laws. For those of you who know what the three laws are, they are a universal series of rules meant for robots in fiction. They were coined by the author who created I believe the story was I, Robot back in the 50s, called Isaac Asimov. And so basically the three rules is let me actually look it up because I can't remember. I cannot remember the rules off the top of my head. A robot may not injure a human being or through an action allow a human being to come to harm. A robot, that's law 1. Law 2, a robot must obey orders given to it by human beings except when such orders would conflict with the first law. And 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So these laws have been around for a long time. Like, they're either called the three laws of robotics, or they're just known as the Asimov's three laws, simply in honor of the person who created the concept. And that's basically Mecha's whole purpose. They basically go to find robot masters. They basically either get them illegally or they get them legally through like purchasing and stuff like that. And then they go wake them up and then try and get them to basically break the laws themselves, and not short out in circuit, so that way they could be free people. And basically what happens is, through a series of unconventional circumstances involving this group of Mavericks called the New Maverick Nation, which are basically these just dumb schmucks who basically fail at being Mavericks. Mega Man finds out about the existence of some of the members. They're labeled Mavericks because they don't look like actual Mavericks, because in this story, like Maverick, like Reploids are supposed to have some robotic characteristics somehow, like usually in the feet. But King's Court completely passed for humans, and all their robot stuff is like underneath the skin. So it's like they're technically Maverick, and so So there's lots of stuff happening in the interim, like with Alia trying to, kind of having a crush on X, of course, it's Alia. Uh, Cygnus having all this stress from literally getting more and more power that he really doesn't want, but is more or less just kind of having to deal with it because the world's slowly starting to get more and more reliant on them and stuff like that. And then there's X, who's kind of stressed about Sigma coming back, of course, and also what will happen with Zero and stuff like that. And so they finally find out about Mecha, and they basically broker a deal. And I thought, oh, that's basically going to be the main conflict because Mecha doesn't want humanity to find out about them because they know that a lot of them were still built by Wily, like Mega Man, like the Robot Masters from Mega Man 2 were built by Wily, and some of them they may actually still go berserk and kill people. And Wily was just a stain on humanity's name that people still would still remember his name even after all that time, and were very willing to just basically attack and destroy the Robot Masters if they see them, just to make sure that Wily may not survive. So I literally thought that the entire first half of the story is like, oh, the main conflict is seeing what would happen when this finally happens. Like Wily, some kind of repentance come with Wily. Will Dr. Light get his wish? Or like the Roadmasters being peaceful and all this stuff. Like inevitably humanity was going to find out about the Roadmasters. I expected that. And then everything came crashing down. This was very much a Murphy's Law situation. It's like, well, nothing can go wrong with the story, and then everything went wrong. So, I really don't want to talk about this. I don't like it. It's so. Okay. I gotta get it. I gotta get it out. I gotta get it out of the way. So, X, and one of the characters named Prince, they kind of come to the negotiations and stuff like that. Said we just don't want, we'll basically help you out with like any situations with Mavericks that you may need help with. We just don't want humanity to know we exist. Like, okay, that's fine, because based on what's happening, it looks like very much something's gonna happen. Like they kind of expecting that humanity is going to find out about it. Like they even very much hint that there's going to be a day where where everyone's going to know about them. So it's like they very much foreshadow that despite the fact they know they're doing this pitch with Mega Man, and that they don't want humanity to know, they know that something that they know that humanity is going to find out about, and it's pretty obvious that it's Doc Man, who is the robot Grim Reaper. And I actually like that concept. I'll talk about more about that concept later because I want to talk about it more in detail. But that's not important. But the whole Doc Man thing is not important right now. And then around chapter 8, chapter 9, the story gets just completely implodes on itself because Sigma comes back. It's like, fine. I kind of expected. I was kind of hoping that Sigma wouldn't be involved in this story, but it's fine. Maybe just being like a nuisance, and just with the new Maverick Nation, he's like, oh, that's just they're there, stuff like that. But no, what happens is Wily comes back to life somehow. Like the story, like they even glosses over how he survived all this time. They just mention something like possibly cybernetics, but they never really confirm how he lived that long. They just completely gloss over it. And then he just basically says, I'm basically just gonna kill everyone. Oh, okay, but and I'm literally reading that part where he basically just showed up, basically, where like literally the entire world was like freaking out, saying this guy's supposed to be dead. Like, how is he alive? It can't be. It's like a sacrilegious god. And Wiley basically just, I'm just gonna kill everyone. I'm not gonna take over the world. I'm not gonna do this. I'm just gonna kill everyone. That's it. And he basically brings in Omega and the gentle judges from Mega Man 03. And it's like, okay, are you so now it's just like a weird amalgamation of like the X series and the Zero series, and I'm just confused. And the entire second half of the story is just basically war and war and more war and like everyone dying. And then the end where it just says, we're just setting up I'm just setting up Mega Man Zero. I'm like, but why though? Like, but why? It's like I'm just like, I mean, I understand that some authors want to, want to make things canon, like put their own spin on things and have everything happen, and that's fine. There's there's a certain gratification of the whole idea of thinking of an idea, and then all of a sudden your idea seems to be confirmed. That's fine. Like that's actually very happy. That actually has happened before, where people predict stuff in like fan fiction and art and stuff like that, and it actually becomes true in the show. So it's not unheard of, but the problem with how this one was executed was it was very much forced. Like, instead of making it very natural, like even making it longer, the author tried so dang hard to try and forcibly put it in the events leading up to make the Zero series, that a lot of that it completely caused the plot, the pacing, the characters to completely kind of collapse into itself. And there's still, like, even after Wily shows up, like, there's still some good in it. Like, X and Alia hook up. There's actually a very weird storyline involving Sigma falling in love with the Maverick virus, which was just weird, but the author made it work, and it led to the creation of the Mother Elf from the Zero series, which I think is stupid. Yeah, honestly, and I'll explain why I think it's stupid in a little bit. And everything, it kind of starts repeating like the novelization is like, okay, it's just war, Wily wins, war, Wily wins, because they make it so that both Wily's army and Sigma's army, they can't really deplete they can't really permanently kill them, because somehow the Maverick virus was able to get into the afterlife and start pulling souls out. Why? And they never really explain how Wily was able to do it with like the 8 gentle judges and all those troops. So like literally everyone starts dying and everything. And then we get to the climax where Mega Man X assaults the Skull Fortress with like Zero and King and all, and like a bunch of other characters. And then Wily and Mega Man fight. Mega Man wins, but this part really pissed me off. And then Wily goes, "No, I won." Because if you kill me, then humanity dies. And then Mega Man lets Wily live. I was completely pissed off about kind of leading into it, because I will say right now, over the course of because of the second half, I was kind of slowly getting to not recommending the story. And this and the author's note at the end just completely combined pushed it. I'll talk about more about the author's note when I get to when I recommend it, because I need to explain it on its own. And then Mega Man X, it's like he understands, like he has to let Wily live. So it basically drags Wily, stops the war, and then it starts setting up Neo Arcadia, and it's like everything. And then Mega Man X just basically turns basically this whole story into propaganda by basically showing the story of turning Wiley into Dr. Weil, despite the fact in canon it's been confirmed that Wiley and Weil are like two different people and stuff like that. And Alia leaves, and then at the end, it's just pretty much everyone dies, and it sets up the events of Mega Man Legends. Um, and that's pretty much the plot. I wanted to go into more detail over this because I wanted to hammer home how bungled that entire second. It's not even the entire story that's bad. From like, it's literally all the problems the story has basically stem from Wiley and how much the author uses Wiley to try and basically force this into canon, into a sort of pseudo canon, and that really destroys everything I liked, because I really liked the idea of the plot from the first half with Mecha, with the King's Court and stuff like that. And it had a lot of really good ideas, and then nope, Wiley. Here's Wiley, and we get like repetitive fighting and stuff like that, and it kind of drags on unnecessarily in a way that just really doesn't fit, and that's just leave a bitter taste in my mouth, because I liked the first half. I didn't like the second half, except the only part of the second half I liked was the whole thing with Sigma and the Maverick virus, aka Mab, which was like a reference to Shakespeare, which I thought was kind of cute. Like I said, I actually liked their little pseudo love story. It was very weird, but it worked. And but that's it in terms of story. Like, it dragged unnecessarily. It just you kept trying to do all these things to like fit into canon, but you did. But it just really didn't make much sense in terms of plot. But them's the breaks. Characters. We have a lot of good characters and a lot of bad characters. All the good characters: X, Cygnus, Alia, and that's it. Oh, and Sigma slash Mab. So let's just talk about those four. X, X basically, he becomes cynical and stuff like that. It's about, I get why the author did this, because for those of you who don't know, the Mega Man Zero series was actually supposed to have X as the main antagonist, but what happened was Capcom made Mega Man X6 that just completely screwed everything up. So Inafune basically replaced Mega Man X with Copy X. So, and no, I'm not making this up. This is actually pretty common knowledge at this point that this is pretty much what happened. You can literally look online, just look up any information about the X6 and that in correlation with the Zero series. You'll find that Mega Man X was supposed to be the main villain. And so it makes sense why, X would slowly, over the course of the story, become more cynical, become completely stressed out. He start acting like Zero and all that. And it works. He's a good main character. He's well written. Nothing's really wrong. Same with Cygnus. He's basically the staunch, kind of steadfast guy. He's basically the leader of the Maverick Hunters. He's weighted by all this stress of everyone, kind of lumping more responsibilities onto him to basically slowly start controlling more and more of the world, until basically the rulers at the time basically said, you're not the ruler of the entire human race. Protect us. You basically control us. And Cygnus really doesn't like the fact that he has all this power, because he realizes that sooner or later he may get corrupt and may go mad, and he really doesn't want that. He just wants to, to help people and make sure they're protected and everything, and make sure the Mavericks are defeated and all that. He's fine. Alia as as like a tritagonist with X, he's struggling with the fact that she loves X, but what happened was during X5 with Eurasia crashing, and Alia. So where was I? My family started yelling and arguing. I was talking about Alia. Yeah, so about Alia. So there's a big thing with Alia, struggling with her relationship with X, because I had talked about this whole thing with Erasure crashed, Zero died, and so X kind of used Ally as an emotional crutch, and so they kind of left them in a situation where they thought, I mean, they don't want, they kind of both have a crush on each other, but like they kind of have like a weird situation where they're too busy using each other as a crutch for their emotional turmoil that they don't want to risk doing it. And it was really only like to their friends to like say, he loves you, you love him, kiss, and then they finally hook up. Then at the end, Alia goes to basically look for humans in the wilderness of like in the wastelands, and with a caravan, which sets up how Seal is born, despite the fact Seal's a human and Ali is a Reploid. Yeah, see, you know what I mean? And that's basically it for the protagonist. But we still have Sigma. I do like Sigma. I really like Sigma. He's basically Sigma. He's this show off, this guy who wants Mavericks to be, who wants Mavericks to rule the world and everything, and all people must die. Mavericks must destroy stuff. But then, as the story goes on, he basically gets like a silver bullet that kind of relives his past experiences, and kind of kicks the virus out for a little bit, and so he kind of starts talking to the virus, and he's like, how are you? And they basically start talking about nonsense. And then Sigma, starts having fun with the virus. Virus finds the virus as a girl. Yes, story made a virus a chick. Don't question it. And Sigma does all this stuff with the virus, starts teasing the virus. Basically, there's one part in the story where Sigma's at the Maverick City, and he's talking to the virus, and he goes, "Well, show me your form." I said, "I don't have a form." He said, "Show me your form." And then the virus turns into what the virus what the virus stereotypically looks like in, I think, Mega Man X5. Said, "That's not the virus. That's not you. That's the virus. Show me you." And so the virus turns into Zero. Said, "No, that's Zero. Show me you." And then the virus turns into Wily. I said, "No, that's Wily. Show me you." And so Mab turned into like the skeletal creature with like a tattered dress and tattered hair, and Zero's like, "Fine, this is what I think I look like." And then Sigma goes, and Mab's like, and like freaks out. And I really liked Sigma and Mab. Like, I really liked their whole teasing idea. They felt very natural antagonists, but at the same time, they were more of a wild card that really worked in the context of the story. They were basically the literally odd couple, like to the point like, even his old men are like questioning, wait, what? He's talking to like midair, because like Mab is like in the skeletal form just talking shop with Sigma, and Sigma's just like talking, and Sigma can see Mab, but like nobody else can see Mab. It's like, who are you talking to? Like, let's just destroy more stuff. And all that jazz. It's like that's very cute. And I do like the fact that the whole reason why the mother elf was born in this story was because Mab actually fell back in love with Sigma, and so that kind of caused her devotion to Wily and to be conflicted with now her love for Sigma, causing her to kind of become an anomaly and create Mother Elf. So I do like that. I do like that character. There is one other character that I really liked, which was a character named Pitbull. I really love Pitbull. Like he's Pitbull is a leader of this unit called Mutt Unit. So in context in the story, all the Reploid units, they're basically like 30 divisions. One division, well, 30 divisions plus double O unit. And but however, there is one specific unit that allows human people into it, like non-Reploids, and that's called Mutt Unit. And I really love the idea of Mutt Unit being like this amalgamation of like Reploids and non-Reploids, and all of them pretty much just act like assholes. Their whole shtick is, we're assholes. We're proud to be assholes. But this guy, he's the biggest asshole. That's basically Pitbull. He's basically like basically like a 50-year-old brick shit house human who's worked for the Maverick Hunters for like 30 years. And he's only doing this because, it's pretty much all he's known for, like his family legacy. And he's basically like, I don't give a shit whether you're Reploid or human. I'm gonna treat you like an ass. I'm gonna treat you like I treat anyone else, like an asshole. And all his troops are like, yeah. But it's like, we don't care about order or taking. You want to throw dirt in their eyes? Throw dirt in the eyes. Whatever it takes to win. I literally, them and Sigma were the highlights of the second half. I actually would unironically love to see a story just based around Mutt Unit, because I really, really loved them. Like just a group of like, instead of like a Ridge Order, they're just like bros and stuff like that, just goofing off, and like when there's like chicks like, yeah. And they basically just like they basically just play dirty, and like they know they're humans, they know their limitations, they know they can't tank as much stuff as Reploids, so they basically just go do whatever it takes to win. Don't be a martyr, because I will literally march up to you in the middle of you being a martyr. I will literally bend you over, hit you with my axe, and drag you away. I just loved Mutt Unit, and they were just great. I would have loved to see entire part of the story just dedicated to them, which did happen. There was like an entire part of the story just dedicated to Mutt Unit by themselves, which was bar none the best part of the second half of the story, because we got a full character arc of not only Pitbull but his entire troop. Like, we didn't really know any other characters besides Pitbull, but we learned all we could from Mutt Unit, from Pitbull himself, and it was really immaculately done. It was magnificent in how it was presented as these dirty fighters that knew their limitations, but we're not advised to like playing dirty and using cheap chicks in order to win, to make up for their weaknesses against robots. It was fine stuff. And the author kills them all. See, outside of those 5 characters, everything gets shoved away because of Wily. Remember how I said all the problems stem from Wily? This is another problem. Like the first half, we had, not only did we have Cygnus, we had Alia, X, and Douglas. Douglas not really is kind of there most of the time, so I don't really. And of course, some other OCs like Donna and Philo and the other captains like most of them be Pitbull. And then you had King and the court and like this entire city full of robot masters. And the author was trying to do these neat things with King's Court, like Viscount and Marguerite, despite the fact they're technically brother and sister. They technically engaged in carnal relationships, mainly because they were sheltered to the point they think that other Reploids would do it. It's just like, no. Eh. It's like we're pretty much lonely. We've been stuck in here for like over 100 years, so we just we really don't have anyone else. I like Earl with his snarkiness that that kind of played like eerily reminds me of Pitbull, but and like each of the characters have their own distinct personalities, but we don't get a full character arc. We don't really get to see how they grow as characters because Wiley shows up and completely just sends them away, and then we still get points of use from those characters, but it's only like a couple paragraphs that just basically shows you they still exist. Like, why? Like they're they go from like the main I guess sort of pseudo antagonist to just a background feature, and that pretty much happens to all the original characters like Donna and stuff like that. They're just Douglas, and even Zero when he comes back, even Zero shafted, even even every character except for X and maybe Alia gets shafted just by Wiley showing up. And it's bad because like these characters were good. They had the potential to be really good, but then he shows up completely, just makes everything the Wiley show and completely destroys their characters. Yeah. Pacing. The story is very, very slow paced and very methodical with its writing. So it makes sense that, it's very, very long. This is 450,000 words. And the methodical pace worked with it because it is a sci-fi story. That's what it says on the fanfiction page. It has a very very sort of idea that it wants to be. It has its own identity that is trying to be what becomes of the Roman Masters when the X series happens. Like they can't have disappeared. Something had to happen to them. And that's another point with Wiley ruining anything, because like it goes from slow and methodical to fast and slow and methodical, and it kind in that weird sort of in the point where it happens, it's just a weird juxtaposition that, looking back on it, doesn't carry weight because it's such a weird transition that's really only foreshadowed by there's a part in the story where Prince is kind of explaining to X that all the Mega Man characters, like all the Light family, as well as X himself, are considered Messiah figures. And same thing with Bass and Docman and stuff like that. With Docman being the Reaper, and so they go visit a grave, a cemetery where Dr. Light and all of them, they perish, and when they get to Dr. Wily, they basically, there's like a drawing set, there's like carved figure of it. It's like, I will never come back. And I'm like, oh. And when I got to that part, I literally went, I mean, that's creepy, but that would be a really bad idea to have Wily show back up, because the story was so focused on, the rights of these Roman Masters, what becomes of them and all that with the King's Court and all that, that Wily would just completely just destroy everything. And that's what happened. When Wily did show up, the pacing and the story and the writing style didn't necessarily know what to do with itself half the time. It's like, is it trying to be touching? Is it trying to be hopeless? Is it trying to be dramatic? Is it trying to be horror? Is it trying to be emotional? Is it trying to be static? Is it trying to be risky and flowing, slow, fast? It tried to be too many things at once, because again, the author wanted to shove this into canon, and he did that with Wily, because because there's always been a rumor amongst people who play the Zero series that Wheel is Wily, despite the fact it's kind of implied that Wheel um, was more probably a Wily fanatic than Wily himself. But there's just everything was ruined by just Wily showing up. The plot was bad. The plot got screwed over. The characters got screwed over. The writing, the writing is still immaculate. The rating still immaculate. But it seemed to have lost something when Wily showed up. Like it's like when like I guess the best thing I say is lost its identity. That would probably be the best thing I say about it. With the use because once Wily showed up, it kept trying to they added in way too many characters and kept trying to move between all of them. But then you didn't really properly develop any of the king or any of his men up enough to really warrant moving to them, and you kept trying to fix things and and then you do cuts between months and stuff like that, and it kind of becomes really really messy and clustered. it I don't know what I could say more about that. It's lost something. Like in the second half, it there's very noticeable that it lost something in terms of the writing. Like it doesn't. And I guess you could say the only thing I could think of is that lost its identity. It's still, I will say this, it's still written very well. It's still written magnificently. There's still nothing really wrong. But anyone who's read it for a long enough time could tell that's it's missing something. It's not all there. And the same thing could be said with the pacing. Like it doesn't know what it wants to be with the pacing. And finally, grammar errors. I didn't see any grammar errors. No, there's that. So now we get to the end. Would I recommend this story? With all the problems I said, you would think, oh, he's probably not going to recommend the story. Truthfully, I came so very close to actually recommending this story because as much shit I gave to it, as much all the problems I presented, it was still written magnificently enough that I can I really wanted to try and give it a curve, but then the two things I mentioned earlier happened. Wily winning, which really didn't need to happen, and the author's note. Good God. I would have at least forgiven the Wily decision maybe after a time, because I honestly think that's a stupid decision. It's a really stupid decision. But I would have probably just, fine. But that author's note completely sunk every last bit of goodwill and just pushed it to, I'm not recommending this story. So how bad is the author's note? He explained why he wrote the story, and he said some very very stupid things. So let's at least talk about that. First thing he mentioned is why he wrote the story. He wrote the story because he got really pissed at Capcom making a retcon to the X series. Again, in any long-running franchise, any long game franchise, a video game franchise, movie franchise, comic book, TV show, anything, retcons are bound to happen. They exist. There's no getting around it. I'm a huge Castlevania fan, and even I can acknowledge that series does have retcons, like the whole thing with Sonya Belmont being literally being deleted from the Belmont history because it literally contradicted like half the stuff related to Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and because Igarashi said that Sonya did being a woman didn't make sense from a historical context. Not joking, he actually said that. And the Mega Man series is no stranger to getting retconned. You know, like more new people will come in and try and do something new with the series. So it's a begrudging inevitability that retcons are going to happen. What retcon did he get pissed off at? It was during a website talking about giving information about the backstory of the Zero series, as well as information about the X series, and the website page claimed that Mega Man X was the source of the Maverick virus. Okay, I would actually kind of agree with him on that, because honestly, that's just stupid. Like everyone who's played the X series knows from X4 and 5 that Zero was the source of the Maverick virus, not X. But the website also claimed that Zero was also Zero did also very heavily contribute it, because the story claimed that uh, Dr. Light knew about a virus from space that was like infecting robots and making them act weird, and so put an antivirus software into him. And then when Wily built Zero, it's implied that he got that virus, and Wily just put him in a capsule, and so that thing kind of leaked in. And so the information kind of presents that both X and Zero kind of played a part in the creation of the Maverick virus. Zero more heavily, but it does seem, but there is some information that kind of claims that X may have had some part too, simply because of the whole antivirus software kind of messing everything up and causing it to go to Zero and stuff like that. I don't know. I literally just only found the information from like the Mega Man fan wiki, so take that with a grain of salt, And so that pissed me off, mainly because there is a certain unspoken number of rules when it comes to writers. And one of them is don't let your emotions control you when writing, because it's fine if you use your emotions to tell a story, because any sort of artistic fulfillment, you're gonna find inspiration from all sorts of things, whether it be from emotions, from what you see, what you hear, what you smell, and of course you can use those emotions to guide your hand. But there comes a point where if you let those emotions control you, then it kind of swells into I guess you can call it a sort of uncontrollable urge, and that passion slowly kind of turns into um, a quagmire of like horrid dissatisfaction, because if you let your emotions control you on writing, it doesn't matter what kind of emotion, then it'll kind of turn in on itself and kind of start the story would contradict itself. So like for example, this story, he let his anger control him to a point where he tried to forcibly put this story into canon and also contradict and then at the same time contradict and basically destroy everything he's built up beforehand in and of itself. See what I mean? And then he claims that um, any he only claims the facts of one unifying timeline, yet he implies that Alia is Seal's mother, despite the fact Seal's human and Allie is Reploid. The whole thing with the mother elf being formed from the Maverick virus, despite the fact in Mega Man Zero it's been confirmed that the mother elf was an antivirus meant to destroy the mother elf. See what I mean? And finally, he claims that any information that's not in the games themselves doesn't count, like i.e. non-canon. Now, there is a legitimate argument for the idea of supplementary material, and basically most of the debate on that topic boils down to, does supplementary material count as canon? And there is legitimate arguments made for both sides, i.e., the fact that there's information, the fact that sometimes supplementary material that's meant to be canon is just completely contradicted, and therefore not becomes non-canon. And then the opposite, it's a weird area of contention that both sides actually have legitimate complaints on it, that no two ideas are going to be the same. However, the main consensus for most people is that basically the supplementary materials canonicity depends on who's writing it, if it's referenced in like the game or show, whatever world it's on, and does the company have approve of it? So, for instance, let's stick with Mega Man. There a couple years ago, they made a novelization of Mega Man X, and people like, wait, you're doing a novelization of the games, and people thought, oh, it's gonna ruin the game, it's gonna ruin the canon of the games because of all this stuff. But then it's revealed that the story is actually a novelization of the Mega Man X manga from, I believe, the late 90s, early 2000s. And so, people kind of accepted that and stuff like that, because it's because the manga and games are tell the same story, but they tell it in two different ways. So they're both technically canon, but at the same time, a lot of people do label the mangas as its own thing, so it has its own separate canon and all that. See what I mean? It's weird. However, you can't dismiss everything that's not in the by going with that mindset that ignores any possibility that stuff of supplementary materials that's provided by the company themselves to enhance the story. Like, for instance, with Mega Man X4, they, in the instruction booklet, they actually provide extra information, kind of going into the backstory of the game. They reveal that even before the whole Sky Lagoon incident, Repliforce was actually not really being seen with the best of light, because they kind of been going a little too hard, a little laissez-faire sort of thing. It didn't help with the whole thing with Frost Walrus. In lore, Frost Walrus actually an actual Maverick that got amnesty from Repliforce, was not a popular choice. So, and also the whole thing with Colonel and Iris, they were actually supposed to be one robot, but the person couldn't replicate the whole idea of how X works, so he was forced to split the robot into two people, which became Colonel and Iris. So, and that's actually canon. That's not made up. That's actual canon, because that was provided in the instruction manuals for Mega Man X4. I actually had the physical copy of the game. I actually read the instruction manual. I knew, and I actually know what's in there. So does that mean, since it's not in the game itself, does that mean this author thinks it's not canon, despite the fact it is legitimately canon to the game, because it's basically just providing background information of stuff that they weren't able to explain in the game? See, again, that's what I mean. It's just his complete dismissal of trying to avoid any criticisms that he had related to any of these three facts. Like, you're trying to force it, but it's too inaccurate. So no, I'm only using the facts that are presented in the game, and only trying to do one single storyline, and yet you're completely using those facts, and you're completely bullshitting your way and talking out your ass. You claim that nothing in the games is canon, but that anything outside of the game is canon, but then you completely just ignore anything that is actually canon, that is supplementary materials, that may actually screw you over. You go and say you get pissed over the fact that that they possibly that Megan X might be the reason the Maverick virus exists, and then you completely go like a completely dumbfounded reason, like a virus mutated and Wiley was still alive somehow because reasons. Oh, but Wiley's dead because Wiley's also in the afterlife. That's another thing. That's another thing that screws this whole alters over, and that the robot afterlife. I like this idea, but it was never explored because the first chapter is like, oh, Wiley's in the afterlife. Okay, Wiley's dead. They're just watching what happens with interest. Like, oh, there's Dr. Light and Mega Man and Roll and all of them. They want to watch. Okay, so Wiley's dead. And then Wiley's live is like, what the fuck is this shit? You literally go out of your way to point out the fact that Wiley is dead. And then you go, Wiley's alive. But no, it's the evil form of Wiley. That makes zero sense because the novelizations don't really point out the possibility of multiple personalities. So why would you present Wiley as dead at the very beginning of the story and then go out of your way to say he never died at all? If you're going to go that route, then don't show anything related to the afterlife at all. I like the idea of robot afterlife, but it didn't work because see again, that's the contradiction. He was so pissed off that he didn't think logically and ended up screwing himself over because he just wanted to put this in the canon. And that off the author's note, it's just. Oh, I've never been. I was literally that author's note completely. I never been so pissed at an author's note in any story ever. This is the first one because it shows how it completely shows how completely screwed over he literally shot himself in the foot. That's basically what the story is. The perfect example of writing with your emotions first and logic second. Because he wrote basically just bent over backwards trying to justify everything that happens in Zero Stories with the Pantheon, with the Gentle Judges, with Gang Sheriff, with Neo Arcadia and stuff like that, with the Resistance. It's just it's bad. It's horrible. No, I'm trying to just I'm trying not to get furious because that author's note was just was basically just a slap in the face. I'm not recommending this story. As much as I would have at least defended the Wiley thing. I would have defended the whole weird tone shift. I would have defended literally the plot literally employing us. I would have defended all the characters being shot because Sigma and Pitbull were still good characters, and the whole thing with the Cygnus and Alia and X were still written well enough that I would at least defend it. But Wiley winning, being ultimately the victor, and that author's note just sunk any hope. It sunk any and all hope that this story had for me recommending it. It's those two choices were just completely horrible and just no purpose with it. Favorite parts. I like Pitbull, like just Pitbull. Like I really love Pitbull and Mutt Unit. Like I said, I want to see a story on these guys. They just have so much potential to be the main characters of their own story, just exploring how they work and what makes them different and all that. It was so much fun. I really love them. What would I change? What would I change? Oh boy, what would I? Oh my god, what would I change at all? Oh my god, what wouldn't I? What wouldn't I change? Let's go with the obvious. Wiley gone. Wiley just literally just everything up to them, X and Prince visiting the cemetery can stay the same. Um, and then after that, just make sure Wiley no be there. If you want to do the stupid thing with the virus, sure, fine. It wouldn't make sense in the story, but it's like it's still it was still well enough written that I wouldn't complain if it was still there. Why the whole war thing doesn't happen? Have it be completely drama with eventually, the government of the city state finding out about the robot masters. They're trying to oppose laws and stuff like that, and and basically the humans and the robot masters, they're kind of gearing up and stuff like that, and X and the Maverick Hunters are basically trying to play peacekeeper and all that. Add in Pitbull because come on, really Pitbull, and give and showcase most of it, a combination of half of it being from X. Have it like divided down the middle, like the King's Court and King, and 9 characters from the Maverick Hunter. So of course we got King, Prince, Countess, Earl, Baron, Viscount, Margarine. What was the last two? What was the last? Oh crap! I'm having a brain. Okay, what was the last two? Baron, Earl, Viscount, King, Prince, Countess, Viscount, Margarine, Earl, Baron, and the other two. And then on the other side, you have X, Cygnus, Alia, Donna, Pitbull, Sigma, Zero, well, not Zero, and the last 3 being like the main occupiers of like humans and stuff like that. And and you can do a lot of stuff with that. But as it is right now, it's just a weird story that I don't want to. I honestly, I don't want to talk about the story anymore. I don't want to talk about the story. I talked about it over an hour, and I never wanted to say that I want a story to be to be reworked more than this, because this story is just a slap in the face. And I'm a big fan of the Mega Man X series. I'm a big fan of the Mega Man franchise. I'm not as big a fan of the Mega Man franchise as like Castlevania or Yu-Gi-Oh, but I love Mega Man, and this is just honestly, this is disrespectful. I would have honestly the mere minimum, at least just get rid of the author's note. Just get rid of it. I would at least compromise by just getting rid of that whole author's note. But yeah, that's yeah. My eyes are irritating me. I'm actually kind of really pissed off. You can't tell, but because I'm off camera, I'm probably gonna start yelling and screaming and getting pissed or venting somehow. But that is Mega Man X Ghost of the Machine. A really good story ruined by the author's blind obsession to giving Capcom the bird and completely screwing himself over. This has been Dark Symphony 777 and cut.